You don't belong here. Get out of my hotel now.
Get out now. The words cracked through the hotel lobby like glass under pressure. Greg Hartman's finger sliced the air, stopping inches from her face. Every eye turned. Ava Monroe didn't move. She stood at the front desk in a plain black tee. Jeans, no jewelry, no label, nothing to soften the scene. Just stillness. Behind Greg, the gold letters of hotel shimmered above a chandelier that buzzed like it wanted to leave. Paula, the blonde manager in navy, folded her hands, lips curved into a smile too polite to be kind. Guests shifted. Someone lifted a phone. The lens caught the moment injustice began to breathe. Greg barked again. You're not a guest. You're trespassing. Ava's voice came calm, precise. I have a reservation. Penthouse suite, Monroe. He laughed. A single sharp sound. Cute name. You people always pick fancy ones. Paula's smile widened. Maybe check the budget hotels down the street, sweetheart. Ava blinked once, nothing more. The silence was heavier than any reply. A concierge, Junior Layla, stood frozen near the belt cart, tablet in hand. She'd seen the name A. Monroe flashed green on her screen that morning. Owner-level clearance, but now her throat refused to sound. Greg's voice filled the void instead. Security's on its way, he announced, loud enough for the whole lobby. We don't do walk-ins pretending to be VIPs, and we have some more den, the guests murmured. One man whispered, she looks calm for someone about to be thrown out. His friend raised the phone higher. The red light blinked alive. Ava slowly placed her black card on the counter. Run my name, she said again, steady. Greg looked down at it like it was counterfeit currency. I said leave. He snatched the card, waved it once in the air for show, then turned to Paula. Lock it up. Paula nodded toward the safe beneath the counter. Metal clicked. The sound echoed, small, final, humiliating. Ava's eyes followed the motion. Her voice barely lifted. You just made a mistake. Greg leaned forward, jaw tight. The only mistake is you walking in here dressed like staff. Paula laughed under her breath. Bless her heart. Lila flinched. Then the air changed. You could feel an invisible current shifting from shame to something colder. Ava exhaled once, the kind of breath that doesn't surrender, only steadies. She reached for her phone. One tap. A single vibration buzzed through her palm. Renee, she said softly, activate Delta Protocol. Log everything from this moment. Greg frowned. What did you just say? Ava looked up at him, calm as the eye of a storm. You'll find out in about 9 minutes. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now back to Ava Monroe. She turned her gaze toward the camera, still recording from across the room. No tears, no panic, just a quiet authority that made the marble floor feel smaller. And for the first time, Greg's voice wavered. Who the hell do you think you are? Ava answered without raising hers. You'll remember soon enough, 9:03 a.m. The lobby of the Monroe Grand glowed with morning light, polished marble, gold-trimmed pillars, and the faint hum of a chandelier that never stopped buzzing. The place smelled of citrus polish and quiet money. Ava Monroe had built it that way. But today, she entered through the front doors alone, wearing a simple black tee and dark jeans. No entourage, no badge of status. A test. One she hadn't told anyone about except her assistant. Every few months, she walked into one of her own hotels, unannounced. Not for the thrill, for the truth. Because sometimes the only way to see how people are treated is to look like someone they'd ignore. She'd done it before. Once in Atlanta, years ago, she'd been told to wait outside for a real guest. That humiliation never left. It became a metric, the human audit behind her empire. Now here she was again, watching her name A. Monroe glow in gold letters on the marble wall, yet hearing Greg Hartman call her a trespasser. Behind him, Paula leaned close to the younger clerk, whispering, VIPs don't come dressed like that. Her voice carried the same casual venom Ava had heard her whole life. Not loud enough to be reported, but sharp enough to cut. Ava stayed silent. She knew power didn't need a microphone. It needed memory. Layla, the youngest concierge, looked from Ava to her screen. Her tablet flickered, reservation confirmed, owner-level override. But Greg's glare froze her in place. Not a word, he muttered under his breath, and the girl obeyed. Ava's eyes traced the reflection in the glass doors behind her. Guests pretending not to stare, a man adjusting his tie to feel less involved, A woman pretending to check emails while recording. She'd seen this choreography before, the bystander ballet of modern bias. She placed her bag gently on the counter, palms open, unarmed. "I'd like to speak to whoever manages this property," she said. Greg smirked. "You're looking at him." That made her smile, the quiet kind that doesn't reach the eyes. Her voice softened, but the words hit like a slow drum. "Then you're about to learn what ownership looks like." Greg didn't flinch. He'd already decided what story he was in. A fake guest, a power trip, another day. What he didn't know is that the story had already been uploaded, logged, and timestamped in corporate servers 5 blocks away. He said, tone dripping with authority that wasn't his. "I'll ask you one last time to leave before we escalate," Paula added, "and don't make it harder for yourself. There are real guests here." Ava's gaze swept the lobby, chandeliers, velvet ropes, polished brass, every inch of it hers, built by the company her grandmother once cleaned rooms for. "You're right," she said quietly. "There are real guests here. Let's see how they feel watching this." Greg laughed, forced, nervous. The kind of laugh people use when the ground beneath them has started to tilt, but they haven't noticed yet. Renee's text buzzed on Ava's phone. Protocol running, cameras synced, audio live. Ava slipped the phone face down on the counter. She didn't raise her voice, didn't move. She just waited, calm, steady, knowing exactly what the next 9 minutes would bring. And somewhere between the chandelier's hum and Greg's arrogance, the balance of the room had already begun to shift. The sound that started it was small, the click of Greg's pen. He tapped it twice on the marble counter, the way a judge might tap a gavel before delivering the wrong verdict. "Security," he said into his earpiece, voice clipped. "Possible fraud at the front desk. Female, black shirt. Name Monroe, claims a penthouse reservation." He didn't whisper. He wanted everyone to hear it. A murmur rippled through the lobby. A man in a tan blazer shifted uncomfortably. 2 women waiting by the elevators looked up, eyes wide. Someone whispered, "She doesn't look like a penthouse guest." Ava heard every word. Still, she didn't move. Her calm wasn't silence. It was control. Paula stepped closer, perfume sharp, smile sharpener. "Ma'am, this is a private establishment. If you don't leave, we'll have to involve law enforcement." Ava's gaze didn't rise from the counter. "I'm not going anywhere." Greg scoffed. "Typical." That word typical landed like a slap without sound. Behind them, Layla's fingers hovered above her tablet. Her screen still showed A. Monroe. Verified. Owner level access. She glanced up. "Sir." Greg cut her off before the truth could breathe. "Not now, Layla. Handle the luggage claim." Layla froze. The tablet trembled in her hand. Her reflection wavered in its glass. A silent witness, trapped between right and employment. A few guests began quietly filming. The red lights of their phones blinked like small alarms no one could unsee. Ava turned slightly, caught one lens directly, and said, "Evenly! Words, not videos! Let them finish their story!" The man lowered his phone halfway, torn between outrage and respect. Greg slammed the counter once, loud enough to echo off the chandelier. "This card is fake," he declared, waving her black titanium like a trophy. "We've had scammers before. You're lucky we're even talking to you." Paula added with that professional venom. "And dressed like that, honestly, it's insulting to real guests." Her smile widened as if she'd scored a point in a game that wasn't hers to play. Ava's jaw flexed, but her tone stayed steady. "You done?" Greg sneered. "We'll be done when you're out." He tossed the card toward Mason. "Lock it away. Tag it fraudulent." The sound of the safe door closing was softer than the gasp that followed. A woman near the coffee table whispered, "Did they just take her card?" Another man muttered, "This is getting ugly." Ava turned her head slightly toward the guests. Her voice stayed low. "Don't worry. You are about to see something worth remembering." Greg crossed his arms. "Are you threatening me now?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Renee's message appeared on her phone again. Phase 1 complete. Internal cameras synced. Audio upload live. Ava tapped a reply without looking. "Let it roll." Layla took a nervous step forward. "Sir, I think she..." Greg barked. "Layla, that's enough!" His voice cracked, the edge of control breaking. Paula laughed lightly, but it didn't reach her eyes. Some people just don't know when to quit. Ava's eyes met hers, quiet, unflinching. Or when to listen? "Hi, B1." The lobby's energy shifted again. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was waiting. Electric, heavy, aware. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed distantly, echoing against the glass doors. Greg straightened his tie, trying to reclaim the room. "You've got 30 seconds to leave," he said. Ava exhaled. "You've got 9 minutes to keep your job." One. And for the first time since she walked in, someone in the crowd smiled. Not because it was funny, but because they finally knew who held the power. The room didn't quiet down, it tightened. Even the chandelier seemed to hum lower, like it was holding its breath. Greg stood tall behind the counter, convinced silence meant surrender. He mistook her calm for compliance, her stillness for weakness. That was always their mistake. Ava Monroe placed both hands flat on the marble surface, deliberate, steady. The veins along her wrist showed not anger, but restraint. Her gaze didn't rise to meet his. It held the reflection of every insult she'd ever swallowed. "Security's on the way," Paula said, brushing imaginary dust from her blazer. "You can still walk out on your own." Ava's tone was even almost gentle. "Why would I leave what's mine?" Paula blinked, confused by the phrasing. Greg laughed, the kind of laugh people use to convince themselves they still have control. "Yours? Sweetheart, you're a guest, correction. You were a guest. This is private property." Ava looked up then, not to argue, but to mark his words. "Yes," she said softly. "Private property." The phrase lingered like a fuse half lit. Layla, still near the concierge podium, stared down at her tablet again. The name, A. Monroe pulsed green. Her throat worked around a whisper that never came. Ava caught her reflection in the mirrored column beside the desk. The young woman's eyes were wide, not with fear, but conflict. Ava knew that look. She'd worn it once, years ago, when a bank teller told her, "You don't look like someone who handles that kind of money." The memory flickered like a camera flash. Same tone, same smirk, same polished cruelty. She'd learned back then that anger burns fast, but composure burns deeper. She exhaled slowly. "You said security's coming?" Greg nodded. "Yes, and you'll wait outside until they arrive." "Good," Ava said, voice calm as water. "I'd rather they witness this." Paula frowned. "Witness what?" "The difference between authority," Ava replied, "and ownership." Greg leaned in, voice low. "You're really pushing it?" "No," Ava said. "I'm measuring it." He slammed a palm on the counter. The sound cracked through the lobby, drawing more phones, more eyes, more judgment. Ava didn't flinch. She looked at the trembling surface beneath his hand and said, almost kindly, "You're shaking." Paula shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward the glass doors. Guests whispered. Someone muttered, "She's not scared." Ava adjusted her posture, not defensive, not defiant, just centered. "I'm staying right here," she said, "until you remember who pays this electricity bill." The sentence landed like a stone in still water. Ripples of realization moved through the crowd, slow but unstoppable. Layla whispered it first, barely audible. "She's not bluffing!" Greg crossed his arms tighter, hiding the tremor in his wrist. "Lady, you're done here." Ava gave him the faintest smile. "You said that 3 minutes ago. Time's running out." Her phone buzzed against the marble. One glance, a single message from Renee. Phase 2 initiated. Internal audio recording live. Continue calmly. Ava locked the screen without reacting. She spoke as if to herself, but the room heard every word. "Calm is my weapon. Always has been." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Paula cleared her throat. "You think keeping quiet makes you powerful?" Ava looked at her finally, directly. "No," she said. "It makes me unforgettable." The air shifted again, heavier now, like something invisible was moving through it. Truth, or fear, or both. And when the elevator bell chimed behind them, every head turned. The guards hadn't arrived yet, but something had. Ava straightened. Her voice dropped to a whisper meant for no one and everyone. 5 minutes left? The first phone went up quietly. No announcement, no flash, just the faint reflection of a red recording light dancing across the marble floor. Then another followed. And another. The lobby of the Monroe Grand was no longer a lobby. It had become a stage. Ava Monroe stood at its center, perfectly still, the only person not pretending. Greg didn't notice the shifting air, he only noticed himself being watched. "What are you people filming?" he barked. "This isn't a show." But it was. He'd made it one. The crowd whispered like wind through glass. "She's so calm? Is she really a guest? Why is he yelling like that?" Ava's reflection shimmered in the mirrored column behind the counter. Black shirt, steady gaze, shoulders squared. She didn't raise her voice once. She didn't need to. Layla, the youngest employee, stood by the concierge desk, gripping her tablet until her knuckles turned white. The system still displayed A. Monroe, owner level verified. She'd tried to tell Greg earlier, but fear had closed her throat. Now, seeing the phones raised, she felt something heavier than fear, shame. Greg's voice carried across the room again. You can all put those down before I have security clear the area. Paula chimed in, voice honeyed but sharp. Don't listen to her! She's lying. I bet that card's stolen. A man in a leather jacket near the elevators muttered, You can't just take someone's card. That's theft. Paula turned to him. Sir, please mind your own business. He didn't move. I am. A soft gasp broke from one of the guests when Greg grabbed the edge of Ava's bag. Sir, she said evenly, you will not touch my belongings. Greg froze mid-motion. That voice, calm, low, precise, cut through his ego like wire through glass. I'll do what's necessary, he said, but the sentence wobbled halfway through. Ava turned toward Layla. What's your name? The girl was startled and almost dropped her tablet. Layla Ma'am. Layla, Ava said, look at your screen. Greg snapped. Layla's eyes darted to the display anyway. Green lettering pulsing. Owner level access. She blinked, unsure if she was seeing right. Sir, it says. I said, don't. Greg's tone cracked. The guests reacted. A woman whispered, she told her not to speak. Wow. A man in the back added, that's intimidation, not management. Ava didn't smile. She simply said, you just silenced the only person telling the truth. Greg pointed toward the door. Enough! You're disrupting operations. But even Paula wasn't smirking anymore. Something in the atmosphere had shifted. Authority had stopped belonging to him. From across the lobby, the man in the leather jacket raised his phone higher. This is going live, he said. People should see this. Ava turned slightly, her tone gentle but firm. Let them. But remember, don't film for anger, film for evidence. The red lights kept blinking. Greg shouted, security! Louder this time, but no one came. Layla's breathing quickened. Her voice shook, but she finally spoke. She's not lying, she said. Her reservation is real. The words hit the air like thunder. Every head turned. Even Paula's painted smile vanished. Greg's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Layla stepped forward, trembling yet defiant. Her name is in the system. It says owner level. You can see it yourself. A hush fell. Someone whispered, oh my God. Ava didn't move. Her gaze softened, not in gratitude, but in respect. Thank you, Layla, she said quietly. You just did your job better than your boss. Greg stumbled over words, searching for power he no longer owned. Shut that down, he ordered Paula. Now, I meant toward her. Paula hesitated, then whispered, maybe we should check. Too late. The room had already chosen its side. Ava looked around slowly, the silence thick with truth. This, she said, her voice steady as a verdict, is how systems collapse one witness at a time. And somewhere behind the front doors, the faint hum of sirens grew louder, echoing through the marble like a countdown. The air cracked like static. Greg's face flushed deep red, the color of pride cornered. He slammed his palm on the counter again, harder this time. The sound ricocheted off the marble like a gunshot. I don't care what your little screen says, he barked at Layla. You don't get to tell me how to run my hotel. The irony didn't even register for him. Ava's expression didn't shift. Your hotel? She repeated the word slow, almost curious. Greg pointed at her. That's right. And you let out a half laugh. Ugly and nervous. You're a fraud with a fake card and a bad attitude. Paula jumped in, desperate to reassert authority that was slipping fast. Security will handle this, she said, voice trembling slightly. And ma'am, I suggest you stop making a scene before this gets serious. Ava turned toward her, calm as winter. It's already serious. Her words didn't rise in volume, but the weight of them pulled the room quieter. Paula exhaled through her nose. You people always play the victim. The phrase hit harder than she expected. She felt it herself as soon as it left her mouth. But it was too late. Phones were still recording. A low murmur rolled through the lobby. Someone whispered, did she really just say that? Another voice replied, yeah, she did. Ava didn't blink. Be careful, she said softly. Some words don't wash off. Greg scoffed. You think you can intimidate me with your quiet act? He leaned forward until the space between them vanished. Let me tell you something. People like you always think they can walk into places they don't belong. The crowd stirred. Layla looked like she might cry. The man in the leather jacket muttered, "She belongs more than you do." Ava's tone stayed even, surgical. "You're right, Mr. Hartman. People like me don't walk in. We build the doors, you stand behind." Paula rolled her eyes. God, here we go with the speeches. Ava ignored her. She was past anger now, past needing to convince anyone. She reached for her phone, pressed a single key. "Renee," she said, "log the manager's language under category red. Bias escalation confirmed." A crisp voice replied through the speaker. "Logged, time-stamped 9:11 a.m. Greg's jaw tightened. "You're recording me now?" Ava nodded once. "No, you recorded yourself." The guests were no longer pretending not to watch. A mother covered her daughter's ears. A businessman whispered to his colleague, "This is going viral in 10 minutes. Paula crossed her arms, trying to steady her shaking hands. "This is harassment! You're harassing us!" Ava tilted her head slightly by standing still. Her phone buzzed again. Public feed tracking initiated. Multiple uploads detected. Greg snapped, "Enough! Mason, call the police." Mason hesitated. "Sir, maybe we should—" "I said call them," Greg shouted, veins flaring in his neck. "Tell them we have a fake guest causing a disturbance." A hush spread across the lobby like spilled ink. Ava looked around the room, at the guests, at Layla trembling near her desk, at Paula trying to pretend she hadn't crossed a line that would end her career. Then she said quietly, "Good. Let them come. I'd like witnesses with badges this time." Her calm wasn't defiant. It was inevitable. Greg tried to hold his ground. "You don't scare me." So Ava took a single step closer, measured, unhurried. "You should be," she said. "Because I'm not the one who's losing something today." He blinked. "What the hell does that mean?" Ava's voice, softened to a whisper, meant only for him, but the lobby heard it anyway. "It means your time's almost up." And as if on cue, the hotel doors opened. Not with police, but with two guests walking in, stopping mid-step as they felt the tension in the air. They looked around, confused, then slowly raised their phones too. The crowd had doubled. The stage had widened. Greg didn't realize yet that he was no longer managing a lobby. He was starring in his own downfall live. It started with the smallest motion, a hand reaching too far. Greg leaned across the counter and snatched Ava's phone. The sound of it, skin against glass, sliced through the lobby sharper than his shouting ever had. The crowd gasped. Paula's voice broke the silence. "Good. Maybe now she'll stop recording her little performance." Ava didn't flinch. Her eyes followed the phone in Greg's grip, her expression unreadable. The kind of quiet that makes everyone else realize they've gone too far. "Give it back," she said evenly. Greg shook his head. "Not until security arrives. You've lost your right to be here." He held the phone high like proof of dominance. But dominance looks fragile when it trembles. Ava's tone didn't rise. "That device is registered to the corporate network. You're holding company property." Greg laughed. "Oh, so now it's company property? Which company would that be?" Ava's gaze locked on yours for about 5 more minutes. Paula smirked. "You see? Delusional. Get her out, Greg." Greg nodded at Mason. "Escort her outside." Mason hesitated. "Sir, maybe we should wait." "I said now," Greg barked. The moment Mason moved, the room shifted again. Ava stepped back, slow and deliberate, but didn't retreat. He reached for her arm, and that was the line. A chorus of voices erupted from the crowd. "Don't touch her." "Hey, that's assault." She said, "Stop." Phones tilted upward like a forest of glowing eyes. Mason froze mid-motion, his hand hovering inches from her sleeve. He could feel the weight of 100 witnesses pressing down on his hesitation. Ava's voice dropped into the silence like thunder you didn't see coming. "Do it," she said quietly. "Finish what your manager started." Her words weren't a dare. They were an indictment. Greg's face turned the color of panic disguised as rage. "You're done. I'm calling the cops myself." He grabbed the desk phone and jabbed the buttons hard enough to make the receiver shake. "Yes, this is the Monroe Grand," he said breathlessly. "We have an aggressive intruder refusing to leave." He paused, confused. The line clicked. Then a calm automated voice replied, "Access restricted. Contact administrator." He frowned. I tried again. Same result. Paula leaned over. "What's wrong?" "The line's dead," he muttered. Ava exhaled slowly. No, it's protected. Greg's eyes darted to her. What did you do? Ava tilted her head. You'll find out when you get the notification. The guests murmured. Phones still filming. A man in a suit whispered, I think she's serious. A woman near the door said, I hope she is. I do. Greg, desperate to regain control, turned to the security camera above them. Get down here now, he shouted into the air, forgetting the camera wasn't a person. Ava's calm only deepened. She leaned forward, just enough for him to see the steadiness in her eyes. Every second you hold that phone, the system logs another infraction, she said. Policy violation, property seizure, misconduct under bias escalation. You just built your own case file. Greg's fingers loosened. For a second, the phone slipped. Paula hissed, Greg, stop, she's bluffing. Ava smiled faintly. Try me. The phone vibrated. One short buzz, then another. A text preview flashed before Greg's eyes. Corporate oversight, incident recording initiated, do not interfere. He went still. Ava reached out, took her phone back with quiet precision, and set it on the counter again. Her voice was almost gentle. You don't need to call the police, she said. They'll read about this in the morning. Greg's mouth opened, but no sound came. Paula took a shaky breath, looked around, and realized half the lobby was now live streaming. Ava looked at her watch. 4 minutes left. The chandelier above them flickered, not from the lights, but from the weight of the moment. And when Ava spoke again, her voice carried like a verdict. Every system you built to exclude me is about to shut itself off. Right in. The moment the phone buzzed again, the balance of power shifted. Subtle at first, like air pressure changing before a storm. Ava Monroe didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply unlocked the screen and spoke into it, calm as a surgeon, precise as a command line. Renee, she said softly, activate full escalation. Log location, Monroe, Grand Seattle. Level Delta 3. There was a pause, half a breath, then a crisp voice came through the speaker. Confirmed. Initiating internal lockdown. Audit feed live. All manager accounts under temporary review. The words floated through the lobby like a new language only she understood. Greg frowned. What the hell was that? Ava didn't look at him accountability. Her tone wasn't angry, it was final. Paula blinked, realizing her tablet at the counter had gone dark. Greg, she whispered, the system just logged us out. Greg checked his own screen, black, every login rejected. What's happening? Mason asked, voice cracking. Ava's answer was quiet, measured. I told you, you should have waited 9 minutes. The guests felt it too, something invisible turning in her favor. The air vibrated faintly as the hotel's intercom clicked once, then again, then froze. Behind the front desk, a monitor blinked red, administrative override, a Monroe. Paula's breath hitched, wait, a Monroe. Layla, trembling but braver now, nodded. That's her. Kaider Wang. The crowd gasped, as if the truth had been hiding in plain sight the whole time. Greg shook his head, defiant. No, this is some kind of trick. Ava's eyes lifted, steady. You're right. A trick. The one you just played on yourself. She stepped forward, picking up her phone from the counter with slow precision. The screen showed the live audit dashboard, her company's internal network, broadcasting everything happening in the lobby directly to headquarters. Renee, she said again, voice clear now, letting every syllable fill the marble room. Add 3 names to the escalation list. Gregory Hartman, Paula Reed, Mason Ellis. Logged, came the reply. Would you like to initiate termination protocol? Greg paled. Termination? Ava met his eyes. That's what happens when you violate policy at an executive level. Paula's voice rose an octave. You can't just fire us. Ava's tone didn't shift. I already did. AMB. At the same moment, the security gate lights behind the counter flickered, red to amber, then off. All staff access badges on their lanyards buzzed faintly, then glowed crimson. One by one, their devices logged them out with the same message. Access suspended, executive review pending. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God, she's serious." Another murmured, "She really owns this place." Greg looked down at his badge, his face draining of color. "What did you do?" he stammered. Ava tilted her head slightly, corrected a mistake. Paula stumbled back a step, nearly tripping over the rug. "This isn't real." But Layla's voice cut in soft, yet firm. It is our names on every floor plan. She's our founder. The weight of that word founder silenced everything. Greg reached for the phone again, desperate. You don't have the right. Ava stopped him with a look. Gregory, she said quietly, you just told me this was your hotel. Consider this your last day believing that. The crowd erupted in whispers. A man near the bar clapped once, not mockingly, approvingly. Others followed, hesitant at first, then louder. Ava's expression didn't change. She looked at the people filming and said, keep recording, let them see what respect looks like when it finally wakes up. She turned slightly toward Layla. Lock guest services, freeze outgoing calls. No one else gets humiliated here today. Layla nodded, eyes wide, tapping into the system that now obeyed only her. Ava straightened her posture, voice calm, firm, unstoppable. Renee, confirm full compliance sweep and notify legal. They'll want to watch this live. Already on, Renee replied. The crowd erupted in low murmurs, disbelief turning to awe. And for the first time that morning, Ava smiled. Not for triumph, but for clarity. Justice, she said quietly, isn't loud, it's thorough. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The lobby lights reflected off polished marble, catching the faint tremor in Greg's hands. His badge blinked red. Paula's tablet went black again. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was judgment made visible. Ava Monroe finally turned to face the crowd. Her phone still glowed faintly in her palm, the soft light painting her expression calm and cold. Everyone here, she began, her voice carrying across the room without strain, has witnessed a full policy breach. 3, to be exact. Unauthorized property seizure, discriminatory language, and public humiliation of a registered guest. She glanced at Greg. All recorded, all time-stamped. Greg tried to laugh, but it came out brittle. Lady, you can't just walk in here and... Ava interrupted, not harshly, just firmly. Gregory Hartman. He froze. She rarely used full names, only when it mattered. You started working here 9 years ago, she continued. Front desk clerk, promoted to assistant manager in 2019, transferred to the Monroe Grand last February. You signed an ethics renewal form you clearly didn't read. The room went still. The only sound was the faint buzz of phones recording. How do you know that? He stammered. Ava lifted her phone slightly. Because I signed your promotion papers. I'm not a guest here, Mr. Hartman. She stepped closer. I'm the reason this hotel exists. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, she's the owner. A woman near the window murmured, I knew it. Look how she stands. Paula stumbled backward. That's impossible. You can't be, oh. Ava turned to her, calm. Paula Reed, regional hospitality certification expired 2 months ago. You ignored 3 training memos about guest profiling. I wrote the last one personally. Why? Paula's lips parted, but no sound came. Ava didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The truth itself was enough spectacle. Every employee in this building works for Monroe Hospitality Group, she said evenly, which means every person you've spoken down to, every policy you've twisted, it all circles back to me. The guests started clapping softly, hesitant at first, then firmer. Greg's face went pale. This isn't fair. Ava's gaze met his. Fair? She let the word linger. You wanted fair when you told me I didn't belong here? He had no answer. Layla, standing off to the side, looked like she might cry again, this time from relief. Ava turned to her. You did the right thing, she said. You spoke when it mattered. Layla nodded, whispering, I just told the truth. Ava smiled faintly. That's all justice ever is. The intercom crackled overhead. Renee's voice came through, crisp and professional. Corporate verification complete. Executive presence confirmed. Incident logged. Legal observing live. The sound echoed through the marble room like a gavel striking. Paula tried one last deflection. Look, this was all a misunderstanding. You came in dressed like what? Ava asked quietly. Someone not worth respect? Paula's throat tightened. No words came. Ava turned to the crowd again. If you ever wonder what discrimination looks like, it's not just words. It's tone. It's an assumption. It's the comfort of people who think they'll never be held accountable. Her eyes swept the room. Guests, staff, cameras. Today, she said, comfort ends. The line landed like thunder. A man near the door whispered, that's a headline right there. Greg took a shaky breath. What happens now? Ava looked at him without malice, only certainty. Now, she said, you watch what real management looks like. She raised her phone one last time. Renee, confirm full authority lockout. I want badges revoked, accounts frozen, and legal notices drafted within the hour. Confirmed, came the reply. The guests erupted in murmurs. Phones captured every second, the sound of access badges buzzing red, one after another, like small alarms announcing the end of an era. And in the midst of it all, Ava stood motionless, the calm center of a storm she no longer needed to weather. It didn't happen all at once. It happened like a domino chain, one red light after another, one gasp after the next. Greg's badge buzzed and went dark. Paula's tablet flickered, flashing, access denied. Mason's workstation shut itself down, screen fading to black with a quiet, final click. And just like that, the hierarchy collapsed in real time. Paula stumbled back from the counter, stammering, "No, this can't be right. We're locked out of everything." Layla looked up from her tablet, voice trembling. "It's real corporate override from headquarters. I can't reverse it." Greg tried the door behind the desk, the one marked staff only. The sensor blinked red. It wouldn't open. He tried again, harder this time, rattling the handle. "What did you do?" he demanded. Ava didn't answer. She didn't have to. The building itself was speaking for her. Guests began filming openly now, no more pretending to check emails or tie shoelaces. Phones rose like witnesses in a trial. The mother with the teenage daughter whispered, "Honey, remember this. This is what dignity looks like." A man near the coffee table muttered, "9 minutes." She said, 9 minutes. Damn. Paula's voice cracked under the weight of panic. "You can't do this! We have rights!" Ava turned slightly, eyes calm. "So did I, 15 minutes ago, when you called me a liar." The words sliced the air clean. Paula covered her mouth, as if she could pull them back in time. Greg's phone started buzzing messages from upper management, unreadable snippets flashing across the screen. Incident confirmed. Stand by for removal. Do not engage. He looked around the lobby, the same space where he'd felt untouchable 10 minutes earlier. Now, every guest stared at him like a symbol of something ugly they'd all seen before. The marble that once reflected his authority now mirrored his collapse. Mason slumped into a chair, face blank, muttering, "I just did what he told me." Ava turned to him, her voice softer. "That's the danger of obedience without conscience." The intercom chimed again, crisp and cold. "This is Monroe Hospitality Corporate Security. Staff on site are relieved of duties effective immediately. Please remain where you are for compliance verification." A collective gasp swept through the room. Greg sank behind the desk, muttering curses that sounded more like prayers. Paula's hands shook. She reached for her badge again, as if sheer willpower could bring it back to life. Ava stepped closer to the counter, not towering, not triumphant, simply present. "This isn't punishment," she said. "It's a correction." For callers, her tone was quiet, almost merciful, and somehow that made it even harder to endure. Layla, eyes glassy, whispered, "Mom, are they really fired?" Ava nodded. "Yes, but you're not. You told the truth." Layla bit her lip to keep from crying. "Thank you." Ava's attention drifted back to the crowd. She met the eyes of a young man still recording near the door. "You can stop filming now," she said gently. "The message is already written." He lowered his phone, voice unsteady. "Ma'am, people need to see this." "They will," she replied, "but not because it went viral, because it mattered." In the background, Paula let out a strangled sob. Greg sank into the swivel chair he'd once guarded like a throne. His authority evaporated, leaving only the smallness he'd tried to hide behind volume. A hush fell again, this time different, reverent. Guests began clapping, scattered at first, then in rhythm, echoing off the marble. It wasn't the applause of the spectacle, it was relief, vindication, a slow reclaiming of decency. Ava didn't bow, she didn't smile. She simply said, "We're done here." Or some. And when she turned toward the exit, the chandelier above her shimmered. Not from grandeur, but from something rarer. Respect finally earned, not demanded. The sound of the applause faded, replaced by the quiet hum of consequence. Every monitor behind the counter had gone dark except one, the master terminal that still obeyed only one name. A. Monroe, executive override active. Ava stepped behind the counter. No one stopped her this time. The very space that had been forbidden minutes ago now opened like it had always been hers, because it was. Greg half rose from his chair. You can't be serious. You're firing us here? In front of everyone?" Ava didn't look at him. "I'm not firing you," she said. "The system already did." She tapped the keyboard once. Her login appeared instantly. The room recognized authority again, the right kind. Renee's voice came through the speakerphone, calm and surgical. All credentials terminated. HR confirmation pending. Would you like to proceed with final documentation? Yes, Ava replied. Issue terminations, effective immediately. Include footage from this lobby as Exhibit 1. Greg's head dropped into his hands. Please, he murmured, I've got a family. Ava didn't raise her tone. So did the woman you threw out last month for looking suspicious. You never saw her again, did you? He looked up, startled, she continued. She sent the complaint that reached my desk. You called it exaggerated. I called it a warning. Paula spoke next, her voice cracking. Miss Monroe, I didn't mean to offend you personally. I just thought... That's exactly the problem, Ava interrupted. You didn't think so. You assumed. Her words were quiet, but they landed like a hammer on glass. Across the lobby, the guests stood still, witnesses to a new kind of justice. No shouting, no spectacle, just order reclaiming its place. Ava turned toward Layla. Run the compensation protocol. Refund every guest here. Full stay plus credit. Layla blinked, stunned. All of them? Ava nodded. They watched something ugly today. We'll pay for that view. The girl's hands shook as she typed, eyes wet. Yes, Mom. Paula's voice trembled again. So that's it? You destroy our careers in front of strangers? Ava faced her squarely. You destroyed your own careers when you mistook cruelty for professionalism. One, einen Toleben. Her gaze softened just slightly. Maybe next time you'll learn that hospitality isn't about hierarchy, it's about humanity. She turned back to her phone. Renee, notify legal to prepare release letters. Include conduct reports for all 3 terminated employees. And schedule a retraining audit for the remaining staff. Confirmed, Renee replied. Would you like to issue a draft? Ava's answer was firm. Yes. Title it, When Silence Speaks Louder Than Excuses. Wait. Greg lifted his head one last time. You could have just called us into your office. Ava's eyes met his calm, steady, immovable. I tried that approach for years. It didn't stop the pattern. But this, she gestured around, the phones, the guests, the proof. This will. He had no reply. The silence filled the space where his authority used to be. Ava picked up her black card from the counter, the same one Greg had locked away earlier, and turned it over once in her hand. Funny, she said quietly. You called this fake. It just ended your employment. She slid the card back into her wallet. The guests didn't cheer this time. They didn't need to. The justice was complete. Before she stepped away, Ava looked toward Layla. Call facilities. Tell them to reset the staff lounge. We'll be rebuilding the culture from that room up. Layla nodded right away. Ava walked to the center of the lobby, the place where she'd first been told to leave, and paused. The chandelier's light framed her silhouette, calm and resolute. This lobby belongs to everyone who walks in with respect, she said softly, and no one who forgets what that word means. Then she turned to leave. Behind her, Greg and Paula sat motionless. Not villains now, just remnants of a system that no longer had power. The revolving doors opened with a hush. Outside, the morning light poured into the lobby. Soft, gold, indifferent. The same light that had witnessed everything. Ava Monroe stepped into it. No guards followed. No applause chased her. Only the sound of her heels on marble, measured, assured. Behind her, the lobby hummed with a new kind of silence. Not the silence of fear, but of realization. The guests were still standing there, unsure whether to speak or stay quiet. Layla, by the front desk, wiped her cheeks and watched Ava go with something close to reverence. Ma'am, she called softly. What should I tell the next guest who asks what happened? Ava turned slightly, one hand on the glass door. Tell them the truth, she said. That today, the owner checked in unannounced. Layla smiled through her tears. And checked out in justice. Ava nodded once. Exactly. Outside, the city moved on. Cars, footsteps, morning chatter, unaware that justice had just unfolded quietly inside a hotel lobby. Ava walked toward her car, parked by the curb. The driver stepped forward to open the door, but she stopped him with a raised hand. Give me a minute, she said. She looked back at the building, her building. The gold letters Monroe Grand gleamed under the sunlight, proud yet humbled. The same chandelier that once illuminated humiliation now reflected accountability. For a moment, she thought of her grandmother, the one who used to mop floors in hotels like this, who used to whisper, "Don't let them see you angry," Let them see you rise. Ava breathed out slowly. She would have smiled. She murmured. Her phone vibrated. A message from Renee. Incident resolved. Media inquiries incoming. Statement draft ready for approval. Ava typed back, release it. Let the footage speak for itself. She slid the phone away, letting the quiet wrap around her like armor. Inside, Greg and Paula sat where they had fallen. Stunned, silent, small. They weren't monsters. They were mirrors. The kind that forces you to see what the world still is, not what you wish it were. Ava's voice echoed faintly in their memory. This isn't punishment. It's a correction. The guests slowly began to disperse. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others whispered to each other, that was power. One woman said to her husband, she never yelled, she never cursed, she just was. He nodded. That's what real authority looks like. Ava opened her car door, but before stepping in, she looked back one last time. The reflection in the hotel's glass doors showed her standing alone, calm, centered, unbothered, a woman who had turned humiliation into history. She spoke under her breath, more to herself than anyone else. Justice doesn't need noise, it just needs memory. The driver glanced back in the mirror. Everything all right, Miss Monroe? She smiled faintly. Better than all right. The system remembered who built it. Wallman in dies. As the car pulled away, the camera of some stranger still recording caught her reflection vanishing into the light. Not as a victim, not as a hero, but as proof. Voiceover fades in. The kind that lingers long after the screen cuts to black. They told her she didn't belong in her own lobby. 9 minutes later, they learned who signed their paychecks. Dignity doesn't shout. It stands. Justice doesn't beg. It arrives. Fade out. The screen turns black. White text appears simple, resolute. Black CEO because silence, when it's powerful, speaks louder than any apology.